So it's been about a month since VShojo completely collapsed. Apparently they were having a lot of financial troubles, but it all came to a head when Iron Mouse uploaded a video exposing a lot of mismanagement at the company, including that she was owed a lot of money by VShojo, and that the company had effectively stolen $500,000 that was supposed to go to a charity, the Immune Deficiency Foundation, and this information and the fallout that came from that led to the company completely collapsing in a few days, with all of the members leaving. So of course, the company did not pay a lot of the talents. They embezzled $500,000 worth of charity funds. They owe a lot of people a lot of money, and it looks like this is going to go down a legal path, which will not be very good for all of the former leadership of the company. But I wanted to talk about Mowtendoo, very senior at VShojo for a long time, and he basically tried to distance himself from everything that was happening and make it seem like he had nothing to do with it. Obviously, he knew that things were collapsing internally at the company because on May 14th, he made this announcement that he was going to be leaving VShojo only 2 months before the entire collapse happened. So Mowtendoo made a point of trying to pretend like he didn't have any involvement with the leadership of the company and like he was completely in the dark about what they were doing, especially with finances. But obviously people didn't believe this and knew that he was very much involved in the leadership of the company. He knew what was happening with the finances. He was involved in slandering members that had left the organization like Silvervale. Vebe and Yanners had called him out for being creepy to the talents. I guess there was some sexual harassment going on there. But we're talking about him today because he made a Google document about his time at VShojo, which is effectively going to be him trying to throw everybody under the bus and save his own name, pretending that he had nothing to do with all of the mismanagement going on at VShojo while he was there. So let's go ahead and read this Google document. Let's talk about my time at VShojo. Hey y'all, before we get started, I want to take the chance to thank all of my friends, former talent, former staff, and other streamers / industry that I've been in communication with who know myself and my role within the company. You have all been wonderful through this tough time. I also want to thank the many people within the community who have been supportive throughout this time and have stood with me while this gets sorted. I have spent the following month gathering countless documents and what I had access to in order to have clear, concise records of my involvement with the company and have provided a small fraction below. Transparency and misrepresentation. There was a lot of hard work and planning involved, and I took a lot of pride in my role in launching the company, but I now simply feel mild, disappointed, and betrayed by those involved. The fact that this has happened at all is troubling to say the least, and I feel deeply for those who were affected by this. If anyone affected needs testimony, evidence, or other material assistance with actions against VShojo, I am more than willing to do what I can to assist. I may have documentation or records relevant to cases, and I'm happy to see what I have. I have also considered taking my own shareholder action against the company, which I won't rule out at this time. I also have to consider action against those that have engaged in defamation against my character, although I am hopeful that we can resolve those matters privately and amicably. And when he talks about defamation against his character, he may be referring to Yanners and Vebe, who referenced him being a creep to the talents and being told not to interact with them directly by the gun run who knew that that was happening, as well as spreading slander about former VShojo talents, talking about how they were greedy and they were problematic, which was why VShojo came up first and made the decision to separate from them, rather than the reality, which was the talents left because the contracts were predatory and it didn't make any sense to them to continue at VShojo. Continuing with the document, that being said, I was never made aware that talent funds were intermingled with the company's operating expenses, which is also something that I find hard to believe, being that he left about 2 months before everything imploded, and he was very senior at the company. He was C-suite, so obviously knew something about how bad the finances were, and one of the reasons I know this is because former VShojo talent Giga actually revealed that she had known that the company was spending money at way too fast of a rate and that income versus expenses did not add up, and she was trying to tell VShojo to change the way that they were operating before she ended up leaving herself. But back to the document, any budget that was used for marketing was a direct result of asking for that amount and either being approved or denied. I had extremely limited financial access, only for small marketing approvals, never broader accounts or operations. I have evidence of this from third parties that I have worked with for marketing media while at the company. I have never had access to bank accounts nor was made aware in meetings about the way finances were being used. What I had been made aware of is that the company was running out of money and needed another round of investment to continue operation. As far as my understanding, the only individuals who had access to company bank accounts were the CEO, the COO, and the finance department. Had I have been aware of financial misuse, I would have exited the company immediately and began to speak with legal counsel and to talent about the misuse of their funds. So it's clear here that Mowtendoo is trying to throw the CEO and the COO under the bus and saying that he had nothing to do with the money situation, which Mowtendoo Multiple talents had not been paid, multiple talents had not had their merch delivered, and it seems like that merch will never be delivered. Iron Mouse in particular had $500,000 stolen that was supposed to go to charity because she was trusting VShojo to handle payments for her. While it may be true that Mowtendoo didn't have any direct control over bank accounts, that doesn't mean that he didn't know about the situation with finances going on at the company. According to Kason, it was apparently a known and common issue that they would be paid late by VShojo, and the alarm bells started ringing when they were later than usual and she hadn't been paid since September of 2024. My role and authority. There are a lot of misconceptions about my role at the company. Some people have stated that I was the CEO or COO, which is false. The two titles at the company that I was assigned were CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and later CMO, Chief Marketing Officer. The change in position was due to an internal company pivot in which the directors of the company assigned the role of CTO to another staff member and subsequently assigned myself to CMO. I was assigned these titles but recently discovered it's not entirely clear if these titles were legally or formally recognized. In terms of seniority, I was not on the board of directors despite assisting in launching the company. I would also like to note at this time that the entire company was remote and no in-person office was ever in use. Upon recent investigation on registered documents from the company that have been unearthed, I do not know if I was ever legally considered CMO or any officer title. It was just a title that I was given internally, which is not something that I was aware of nor would have found acceptable. So I think it's very clear at this point what Mowtendoo is trying to do here. He is trying to absolve himself of any involvement or responsibility in the collapse of VShojo, as well as the mismanagement of funds, the embezzlement, pretty much anything bad that the company did. I don't know if this is an attempt to make sure that the individual talents do not go after him, or if this is more of a PR move, but I don't think that this is going to work at all. Now, what he's saying is that his role as CTO, Chief Technology Officer, and CMO, Chief Marketing Officer, despite the fact that he had two roles which have the chief title, that he was not actually a part of the C-suite at all. He was not on the board of directors and he was not somebody who was actually that senior at the company. The only thing senior was his title, or that's what he's trying to convey. Now, I'm personally not sure that the CEO gun run would actually verify the validity of these claims, but there hasn't been any response to this document made yet, so it's just Mowtendoo's word, which I don't think with most people really amounts to that much, and he's saying that he had the CTO and CMO title, but it didn't really mean that much, and he wasn't really that senior at the company, and he had no idea about any money mismanagement, and he had nothing to do with any of the embezzlement or the bad finances, and that he wasn't even legally considered to be any officer title. He was just called that without officially having the title. Initially, when launching the company, I blindly put my trust into these people that they were doing everything correct in terms of structure and finance. In hindsight, that trust was misplaced. Below, I have attached a series of screenshots of documents from a failed merger in 2024 that only list the CEO and the COO as officers and members of the board. That does not include any mention of myself within the company structure. I've also attached in its entirety a copy of the board consent form from the initial VShojo stock adoption plan, which can be found here. This document, which I have obtained, is dated February 27, 2021, and must be signed by all the members of the board to proceed. It has signatures from the CEO and COO respectively, and the document does show the signatures from the CEO and the COO, but no signature from Mowtendoo, which I guess is supposed to signify that he had no involvement in the company's mismanagement. From the start, I felt as if I was always unfairly sidelined in terms of role and influence within the company. Any criticisms I had always felt as if they fell on deaf ears, and as time went on, the staff expanded, and I felt more and more sidelined within the company. My role in the company more or less began to feel like an employee that just did marketing and a few other tasks when needed, as opposed to someone who assisted in getting everything off the ground. I feel as if there was not a lot of honesty and transparency about certain happenings within the company, and I now believe that some things I was told were not the truth. Things such as information about talent's behaviors and the reasons for talent departures was information that was presented to me by the founders. This directly influenced my beliefs and feelings about the talent, and I now believe, based on new findings, that the information presented to me was untrue. So once again, now we have Mowtendoo, who obviously worked pretty closely with the talents at least at some points, and was even going to the point of harassing them before being scolded by the CEO and told not to interact with them directly. He is trying to say that the only reason why he believed negative things about these talents is because he was presented that information by VShojo leadership, and he didn't really basically have his own information to make his own opinion, which obviously that is demonstrably false with his position at the company, and even if he had a negative perception, there would be no reason for him to go spread slander about former members of VShojo. There were many projects and pivots that I learned about only after they were in motion or were approved by the board. Things such as a pivot to a social media style website service at one point and a full company merger, both of which I strongly opposed, are amongst a few examples where I would be notified subsequently to the work beginning. There were times where I was asked to sign documents without adequate time to get them reviewed by an attorney and told that it could potentially lead to my removal from the company. I was told that it was needed for the success of the company with minimal and insufficient details, an example being the aforementioned merger above. Well, I think that's pretty interesting because typically a company doesn't have to consult a standard employee to be able to move forward with a merger. The people heading the company kind of just do that amongst themselves, you know, the C-suite, the chief officers at the company, which apparently Mowtendoo wasn't legitimately a chief officer at the company. At least that's what he's been saying in this document, but apparently they needed his signature to do a merger? Strange. In the final years of the company, I did not directly speak with the CEO one-on-one in any capacity, only the COO weekly. This was likely due to the fact that I would be extremely critical about decisions made in the company and the lack thereof scaling in ways that I believed made sense. The CEO had a habit of putting other staff in front of him when faced with adversity. An example of such was that they would often put other staff in front of talent for communication whenever possible, especially in the final months of the company when significant criticisms arose. Dismissal and aftermath. On May 1st, 2025, I was called into a sudden meeting with members of the board, where I was informed that my alleged position of CMO was being removed from the company along with 4 other employee positions, one of which being the financial manager, as a cost-cutting measure. During this meeting, it was also conveyed to me that the COO would be stepping down for unknown reasons. It was agreed upon that the statement I would make publicly would be written in a way to make the departure look more favorable for the company and myself, so as to not raise any alarm bells about the health of the company or create speculation. Given my growing distrust with the board up to this point due to talent departures, I have recorded notes and transcripts from these meetings that I have retained from my records. From about May 15th, 2025, all of my access to my company email address I had was revoked, and I departed every server, Slack, and company-related software to move on to begin working on a personal endeavor. I assumed that the company would just simply run out of money in a few months, would post a statement about closure, and I would be grateful that it was a good run. From this point, I began planning and working on my own non-VTuber project to launch in late July to early August and have it hopefully launch before the company would assumedly go under or be sold. So it seems like by the time that Mowtendoo had departed the company in May, he was fully aware of the horrible financial position and that things were going to collapse soon, which I think at this point was definitely something that a lot of the talents were not aware of, especially the VShojo Nova Girls, the Japanese branch that they had recently launched in November of 2024. On July 2nd, 2025, I did a check-in with the CEO to see if anything that would be happening in the company that could conflict with the launch of my project. Hey brother, I have a little bit of a request from you. I have a pretty large forward-facing thing I'm working on this month that is slated for late July, early August. Can you keep me up to date on anything large-scale that might be happening at VShojo around that time, whether good or bad, company dissolution, new members joining, members leaving, company sale, etc. Need to have all that on my radar in case I need to move times and things around. Hope you've been well. I was told to check in after Anime Expo, which I did, and was redirected to a new staff member that was allegedly hired after my release. I have censored their name as they were a new hire. In typical fashion, someone was to be put between myself and the CEO for communication and would not clearly tell me what was potentially going on. This is the final time I have had any contact with the CEO. Hey Mowtendoo, connecting you with blank. He's been taking over for more VShojo leadership things and can keep you better up to speed. And then Mowtendoo DMs him. Hey there, so doing a check-in if there's going to be any upcoming negative news or the like over the next 30 days or so I can prepare in advance as I look to launch a new public-facing project in that window. I'd say the answer is probably yes. One way or another, there's going to be some negative stuff publicly, I can't say what. On July 21st, 2025, a statement went out about the company not paying out charity money that was owed to the IDF. This is where the Gunrun, the CEO of VShojo, stole $500,000 that was supposed to go to the Immune Deficiency Foundation so that he could pay off VShojo debts, and in his statement about the company's collapse, he would pretend like he didn't know where that money was supposed to go or where it was from. The same way that Mowtendoo is pretending like he didn't know about this at all. The following message exchange can be seen shortly after. Well, Mouse just posted a thing without any advance notice, so heads up. Well aware from the large amount of DMs and texts I'm getting. Sad day. Can I get some context here, as this is the first I'm hearing about any of this? VShojo owes a lot of money to talents. I don't know when you were involved with the company, but it's been an ongoing known issue for a year, and the charity payment is related. You probably have more context than me, I suspect, but also I'm not sure what your relationship was with the company and when VShojo ran out of money some time ago, and has been operating with what was supposed to be talent money, hence causing the current situation. I think it's funny that this guy is calling Mowtendoo out for probably having more context than he does, because of course that's the case. Mowtendoo was one of the chief officers of the company, and he was there since the beginning, so why would he be asking the questions to this new hire who just appeared at the company when it comes to what's going on internally with the bad finances? But Mowtendoo responds with, I was never made aware of this being an issue from both CEO and COO. I was aware that there was financial issues but not outstanding payment, especially for charity. And then he replies to the new hire with excuse me to his post saying you probably have more context than me, I suspect. Mowtendoo over here with the kind of acting that you would see in an adult video, pretending like he had no idea what was going on, and acting like this new hire should know more about the bad financial situation and the embezzlement of talent funds when he was the CTO of the company and he was there since the very beginning. Like I said, I don't know what your relationship is or was, or what your role was, but these issues have been ongoing for most of the past year as far as I know. Since sometime in 2024, you'll have to ask Justin. I've been here for 3.5 weeks, so I'm just learning and navigating through this as best I can. Again, pretty gross that this guy is trying to pretend like this new hire who's been here for literally less than a month would know more about him, about the bad finances, and about the talent relationship going on, where all of these talents are leaving. Obviously, he's not mentioning the fact that he was shit-talking the talents after they left, and he's acting like he has no idea about the $500,000 from the charity funds being embezzled by VShojo. He didn't know about any of the talents not getting paid for months. Just being performative in the DMs, I'm imagining, so that he could screenshot this stuff and then pretend later in court or something that he didn't know what was going on. This exchange shows when I first became aware of this issue of unpaid charity funds, as well as what funds the company was operating on. This was infuriating to me, as it revealed financial misuse that had been hidden from me during my tenure at the company, and it was revealed after the fact. I have many opinions about the way the company was run over the years, as well as the decisions that were made by the board. I feel that one day I will share my opinion on the decisions that I believe caused the company to collapse financially, the things I would have changed structurally as the company was run, and some of what I feel was the sheer incompetence of the board. This guy is so full of shit it hurts. I'm just reading this and thinking of that meme of SpongeBob looking for himself. Evidence retained. I have retained supporting documentation, including but not limited to meeting transcripts and notes, corporate filings that show only the CEO and COO as board members, various contracts, a statement of information listing only the CEO and COO, with no mention of myself as an officer. These materials confirm that I was not a registered director of the company and likely not an officer despite the titles I was given internally. I also have former staff and former talent that can corroborate the things that I have made clear in this statement, as well as a multitude of other individuals who can confirm these statements. Closing. Once again, I would like to emphasize that my role in the company was not as broad as some have suggested. I was never given access to finances, nor was I ever a part of board-level discussions. My responsibility was limited to technology and marketing under the approval of the board. I was made aware that the company needed investments, but not that talent funds were being involved in operations. I'm so grateful for the large amount of support from friends, talent, staff, and community members during this time. I will continue to stand with those who were most impacted and assist however I can. I am still really excited for the things that I have planned coming up, and I hope to show you all soon. So pretty much the entire document was, I had nothing to do with this, please don't blame me, I was just a little employee, even though they needed my signature to do mergers and I had multiple chief titles, including Chief Technology Officer and Chief Marketing Officer. I wasn't actually a chief of anything, I was just an employee and I had to ask pretty please to do anything at the company. And despite being there since the very beginning, I had no idea about the mismanagement of funds by the company, the embezzlement of Iron Mouse $500,000 charity funds. All of this was a mystery to me, so much so that I'm asking the new hire who's only been there for 3 weeks information about what's going on with the finances of the company that I don't know as the guy who was literally a founder. But now that we're done reading this document where this guy just lies and throws people under the bus so he can cover his own ass, let's take a look at this community note that was posted on the tweet. Mowtendoo actively harassed and defamed talents during his time at VShojo and after. He fails to address this important issue in his document or the fact that he has deleted tweets claiming ignorance of VShojo's internal issues. And then it links to the tweet by Vebe, in which in a section towards the end, she specifically calls out Mowtendoo Mowtendoo and his conduct while at the company. Now for some fun facts. Their company lawyer has an expired law license. He literally does not practice law anymore, yet he was our point of contact for any legal help we needed. They actively pitted us against one another during my time there and compared our success to others. They tried enforcing streaming schedules so that our view count would look better due to less overlap. They would always talk other VTuber agencies. They literally would spend company money to get a tiny dig at them, especially Hololive. It lived rent-free in Gunrun's head. They were convinced Hololive was over when they signed Kason and Nazuna. Our previous talent manager got ghosted for 6 months by Gunrun, told not to do any work for us, and then got fired for not doing anything. During this fiasco, we weren't able to get any assistance. MTD, that's Mowtendoo, got reprimanded for being creepy to us. LOL. Got told not to message us privately. Go figure. I have proof from other streamers attending their IRL parties that Mowtendoo would actively talk me after I left the company to paint me in the worst light imaginable. Don't know why you're acting innocent on Twitter, pretending you weren't aware of anything. Can't wait to see all the shit that comes out about you because there's loads, but those aren't my stories to tell. Thanks for reading, and thanks to those who stuck around between then and now. Thank you for giving me, Silver, and Nyan the benefit of the doubt when we needed it most. And then Nyanners would respond to this tweet with this. Mowtendoo had the audacity to talk shit about you to my face at a party the year that we all left, and painted you as some conniving, greedy, mean girl who was in my ear and manipulated me into leaving VShojo just because you wanted me to join OTK, cause her boyfriend Soda is part of that org, or for personal gain or some shit. He got uncomfortably close and up in my face and was like, come on, I know the real reason you left. I know it was cause of Vey. She talked you into it, etc., and it was infuriating. I know he spread the same shit to other staff, talent, and other industry people. Seeing one of my closest friends get dragged through the mud like this for years was awful. You did absolutely nothing wrong and had so much shit flung at you just because they wanted to push a narrative to protect the company. For him to act like he's completely blameless is insulting. He is a creepy motherfucker, and there's a lot more obviously, but a lot of it is not my story to tell. So that's pretty much everything on the situation so far. Mowtendoo releases a Google Docie trying to save his own ass and throwing everybody under the bus that was involved with the situation except for himself. And he clearly got called out by the talents, and he didn't address any of these claims by Nyanners or Vebe, which was very interesting because these tweets were posted in July, days after the Iron Mouse video, and he made a whole document talking about how everything was the CEO and the COO's fault, but he didn't address any of the claims against him by the talents. Probably because he doesn't have anything to say against those, because those things are true, and maybe if he addressed them directly, they would come out and post more evidence against him. The guy's clearly a slimeball, and he was much more involved and knowledgeable about things going on at the company than he's letting on in his document, a document that's clearly filled with half-truths or quarter-truths, doing everything he can to cover his own ass and pretend that he had the most minimal possible involvement in everything, despite his senior position at the company. This has definitely been a pretty wild year for the VTubing space, and I'm really interested to know what's going to happen with this VShojo situation. VShojo tried to be the Hololive killer, and that didn't work at all. They didn't get to the heights of Hololive or Niji Sanji, and they just made themselves a laughingstock by the end. And I think that documents like this are really just a sign of panic and desperation, because the people involved with all of the stealing funds, embezzlement, and other financial crimes and various debts owed to different people, VShojo management, when they get sued, will likely be going to jail for a long time.